So not only was 11.1 just Datamined on the PTR, but we finally learned what Nightfall actually means, and we are revisiting the actual horrific visions of N'Zoth, in particular, the corrupted Orgrimmar and Stormwind, the same ones from BFA. On first glance, when you look at the official article, this seems like a whole bunch of recycled content, but when we look at the PTR information, it seems like we are going to a time travel scenario to get information about how we dealt with N'Zoth before, because the current old Godblood deposits are going to start giving us troubles real soon, and it will be a lot more dangerous than what N'Zoth gave us back in BFA. So what really is Nightfall? What are these new horrific visions? Are we going to see the grand return of N'Zoth now, seeing that the ethereals and Kalesh seem to be the path that leads us into midnight? So if you haven't seen it yet, I've opened a second channel for the raid, and I'd really appreciate it if you guys could check it out. However, best of all, the game has just gotten a huge update, and you can get 2 really good, completely free legendaries if you download the game with my link in the description or the QR code on the screen. The 6th anniversary is here with huge updates, making the game better than ever. Upgrading to 6 stars has never been easier, and you can play on PC with multiple accounts. Best of all, there is a brand new promo code Supreme6 where all new players will get a really good Orc Supreme Gallic for a limited time. Furthermore, Alice's adventure is still upon us. With all the new legendaries, you can get Alice by just logging in for 7 days. I've personally maxed her out, and you can check out how to gear her and what you can do with her on my second channel, Doran's Arena. I've also got a clan that is almost full, so I'd really appreciate you guys joining in because we need all the help we can get. And you can also check out my guides on how to progress from campaign to dungeons, clan boss, and arena so that you can get to the endless content Raid has to offer. So click the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen and you will get the best start ever. You will get Sargala after you complete the tutorial, you will get Ugo at level 15, and you will get Alice after 7 days of logging in, and Supreme Gallic if you use the code Supreme6. On top of all that, you will get a whole lot of extra stuff to help your adventure with my link in the description. So check out my second channel and also check out Raid. So we've been talking about these horrific visions and Nightfall thing as one of the most important main storylines in the War Within that is going to be the big turning point into midnight, but unfortunately, based on the recent official article and some PTR information, it doesn't really seem like it is going to be what we expected it to be, but at the same time, there are a few really interesting lore nuggets and implications that could tie it to the main storyline and N'Zoth. So far, based on the article, the 11.1.5 doesn't seem like some giant turning point, it just seems like a filler patch, and the horrific visions seem like a little bit of old recycled content to get the patch cadence, but as I said, at the same time, there are a few other things going on here at the same time. We did finally learn what Nightfall actually means, and it is apparently a scenario for the Arati. We will fight beside a new faction called the Flames Radiance, and we are fighting against the Nerubian forces. This faction is a volunteer Arati militia, and we will have to push back against the Nerubians. Kinda similar to what happened before, but I think it isn't really what we expected. Like, I was personally expecting some giant transformation of a new zone or Beledar, but it really does seem like one final push of the Nerubians after the defeat of Queen Ansarak. We know the Crystal Beledar has been transforming constantly and switching to the night, which empowers the Nerubians. Here, this seems to be one final culmination, so this Nightfall might actually lead into something greater with Beledar. On the other hand, we also learned what the horrific visions are, and I've talked about this for a really long time now. By all accounts, this seems to be a time travel scenario and something akin to the Mists of Pandaria in the upcoming Legion remix, but based on some Datamined PTR information, there is actually more at stake here. However, I did say that N'Zoth is getting involved. People have been saying that nothing really confirms that these would be N'Zoth's horrific visions, and that this might be the new Zealoteth visions or something more related to the Void, but as you may remember, they did write on that roadmap that we are revisiting the horrific visions, and so far we've only had one horrific vision, so it has to be related to N'Zoth. Now, the official article that was released a few days ago states that we are actually returning to N'Zoth's corrupted Stormwind and Orgrimmar, the one that you may remember from that iconic BFA cinematic, where we will have to maintain our sanity and go through it. Now, if you played BFA, I mean, you know the gist of it and what this will look like and how the gameplay is going to be. On first glance, this seems super lame, as in they're really just recycling old BFA content and trying to push it off as new, but we have actually a lot of information on why they're actually doing this, and good news is it is related to the main storyline and it is actually a part of the plot progression. Unfortunately, 11.1.5 isn't the big storyline point I was expecting. As I said, I was expecting a big return of Nazad, significant old god involvement, but that still isn't out of the picture. It just might not happen now. So far, the Bronze Dragons state a few things in the PTR. They say that the black blood, much like the old gods from which it came from, is potent and dangerous, and it isn't the first time Azeroth is facing the mind-altering properties. As you may know, the Void is really big on driving you insane and warping reality. Now, the Bronze Dragon continues that when Nazad sought the return of Nilota, Vrathian and the Titan Mother discovered how to resist reality warping corruption. So the gist of it is we are going back there to revisit a few key moments from BFA and to gain new knowledge that we can implement with the current old god corruption and what we can do right now with the current context. Key point is similar visions, old god related visions are coming in a much worse way and we need to prepare. As they say, continue reliving these visions, champion. The more we understand the past, the better we can face the threats of the present. Now, a few things are actually going on here that are not obvious when you just read the article. I predicted a few months back that the involvement of Nazad in the old god blood is going to happen, but I did say that the return to Nilota could be possible. Remember, Nilota is apparently the old god capital of Nazad, but we've only actually been there in a vision, not the actual reality like an alternate scenario. And the interesting fact is that Nilota was called the Sunken City, which made absolutely zero sense, seeing that not only was not it underwater, but it also didn't sink anywhere. I mean, there was no presence of water. Then in the War Within, we're constantly getting these hints of sea under the sea, the Void Sea. There are these Void minions living in some hidden zone. There is the 5th Old God mural. There is also a confirmed hidden zone called the Rootlands. So it could entirely be possible that the true Nilota could actually be somewhere close to Kazakar. Like this massive Black Empire city did actually sink somewhere, and these old god monsters still live there. Hence, it is called the Sunken City. However, the 11.1 ending where Blizzard told us that now we will know where we are going next kinda changed that prediction drastically. I mean, it doesn't seem like 11.1.5 is offering a new zone, so it's not like we got all that much room and we actually have more info to work with. The current story summary is that the ethereals stole Zelda's Zarhar, they took it somewhere. These ethereals are very likely an opposite faction, or they worked for her and betrayed her, the so-called Shadow Guard ethereals. The interesting thing is we get a glimpse at a portal that appears to be Kalesh, the famous destroyed void planet, the one that was destroyed by Demensius. Now, the only other Datamined zone we have for the War Within is the Rootlands and the entire Haranir storyline that we've Datamined even back in the alpha. And here, we don't really know what to expect, but the Rootlands and Kalesh really seem to be the currently two relevant zones. Seeing that we only got one more major patch left in this expansion and a few mini ones, it is unlikely we're going to get Kalesh, Rootlands, and a giant Nilota. However, old gods are still relevant, and I think it will be one of the main themes of Rootlands as we are going to the roots of the famous World Tree, Eluna here. Did you notice that the old god blood is like the main story aspect of War Within, but we are not learning much other than the fact that it is all over the place, that Galavix is using it as a very powerful weapon, it is apparently potent. It seems to be the combined blood of all the old gods of Azeroth hidden in the crust of Azeroth, and there is still that unexplained 5th old god mural from the Nerubian kingdom and the Nerubian labs where they're extracting old god parts from that are not explained. So the point is, the old gods are definitely still relevant to the main storyline. In 11.1.5, based on the PTR and the official article, we're revisiting Nazad's vision in order to learn how to counter the old god blood, because it will apparently soon start causing the same mind-altering effects, and we need to see what we did in the past. I think this is a pretty big foreshadowing for the relevance of the old gods. Also, Nazad's death has been super weird. We never really discovered the true location of his prison. We didn't really fight him like we fought Yorkstron in his prison. I've made a whole video a few days back explaining this, but something really weird is going on with the old gods. Like a few years ago, back in Dragonflight, Blizzard hinted that the old gods had rebelled and that they're not even working on the same goal as it initially was, which was the fact that they were just weapons of the Void Lords. My recent theory has been based on the new information from the War Within, and that is, as we know, Azeroth can corrupt its invaders, like how she gave free will to the Titanforged and she forced them to rebel. So it is possible that Azeroth's whispers actually shattered the old god unity and got them to war with each each other to establish their Black Empire, and they kinda deviated from that mission. From their perspective, why would they even wanna awaken Azeroth and empower the Void Lords when they could just take the planet and rule for themselves and become something akin to like mini Void Lords themselves? So the theory goes that the Void Lords realized the old gods rebelled, they sent Xal'atath to deal with them to get them back in line. This explains the constant criticism Xal'atath has for them, the constant contempt, but obviously she failed in this mission, seeing that she was stuck in that dagger, but now she seems to be back on the original track. Maybe we are going to deal with the last breath of the Black Empire before we go with the original Void Lord plan. Furthermore, if this is not the case, because as I said, it is a speculation still, remember, the old gods like N'Zoth are super weird. Remember that quick time travel scenario we had in Dragonflight where N'Zoth got new whispers that they added? We apparently time traveled to the time when the old gods were still fighting the elemental lords, so very early in their reign, and N'Zoth essentially has this breaking the fourth wall moment where he tells us he sees us, kinda in the present. I don't see why these new BFA visions would be any different. I feel like somehow we're going to get yet another self-aware moment, as we did manage to ultimately defeat N'Zoth in BFA through these visions, and he might see what we did in this weird time travel, but also at the present in the same way, if that makes any sense. Another big thing is that while we defeated N'Zoth, this once again wasn't exactly his prison. We don't know the location of his real prison. For example, we know exactly where Yogg-Saron was or where Cthulhu was, we saw the prison ourselves, but we just don't know where N'Zoth is. Apparently somewhere under the sea, but it has always been super vague. It is possible that he could be related to Khazlagar, or if not, if this is not N'Zoth we're talking about in Khazlagar, it could be that fifth old god that was hinted at, because remember, Nerubians are gathering all these old god pods somewhere in Khazlagar, but we don't know where from. Nonetheless, while 11.1.5 seems like a super filler recycled content patch, it seems to set up the storyline for the old gods to once again be relevant. So don't be surprised if new whispers arise. We discovered new old god prisons and something new about Xal'atath. Maybe N'Zoth will tell us himself who Xal'atath really is, what the real plan is. Maybe we will discover that the Void is more split than we thought. Remember, we are not fighting the United Legion here, led by a single character like Sergeras. It is entirely possible that the old gods are against Xal'atath and the Void Lords, and those Void ethereals are against both of them, and they're working for someone else. It was hinted that Xal'atath is working for Dimensius, which is one of the Void Lords, but we don't know much other than that. So the story is really starting to get good and culminate for the Midnight Invasion. Thanks for watching. Check out our new expedition to Karesh by clicking on the screen, and subscribe to my new raid channel by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.